We have an obligation to do things too in the House and the Senate. We thank you for what you are doing. I know it's got to be terribly distressing to see all our work being put at risk. I'm thinking, the Global Magnitsky Act, guess who pushed me? It came from the original Belarus Democracy Act, which I did in 2004. But all these people said, oh, don't do that, don't sanction Lukashenko. Well, we did. That law was signed by George W. Bush in 2004. And we got a lot of prisoners out, and we said, we're not killing you, we're not going to be able to do business here. And that's the underpinning of the entire Global Magnitsky Act that came from the Belarus Democracy Act. And I will look to do specific, country-specific legislation to help the president get adherence to, and his countries, because he's already doing it, to what they've agreed to. And again, I can't say it enough. You sign something, you put your honor on the line, and then you do nothing, or you wink and nod and allow certain things to happen. I'm talking about individual players in the two countries, particularly in Home Free. We're going to, and we have to get more involved too in Congress. And I just have to leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curran. Next question, thank you again. Even after the signing of the Washington Accord last month, the M23 and Rwanda Defense Forces took over Uvira in its third new offensive in the Kivus in 2025. So while I'm glad to see Secretary Rubio's and Ambassador Walz's tough messages towards Rwanda, including that they will use tools at their disposal to hold Rwanda accountable, we have yet to see any of those tools deployed nearly a month later. What punitive measures to ensure return of civil administration to the evaluation of those agreements?
That's an old one. No, you should have this. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. No.
But we don't have a timeline yet on when we get to those civil administration policies. Alright, and then my office is receiving reports of abductions and reprisal attacks against the Banya in Europe, Rwanda, and other unidentified armed elements. What steps is the U.S. taking to mitigate civilian protection risks to residents of conflict-affected communities in Rwanda? I want to turn now to the importance of civil society. I appreciate that you acknowledge how important they are. I'm glad to hear that the plan is to have the AAU do some consultations, but what is your response to criticism from Congolese opposition and civil society figures, including Nobel laureate Denis Mukwege, that the U.S. peace process has effectively rewarded Rwanda with pledges of U.S. investment for attacking DRC?
So we do continue to engage civil society, especially at our RDC level. RDCs are going to be groups, especially in designing national and constitutional framework. And we're going to developing that aspect of these agreements. And again, we do look to that we need to play a table or civil society versus and
Oh, I think most of civil society that I've spoken to would disagree with the assessment that they have been engaged in this process. So I would urge you to rectify that situation because the Congolese have, been privy to 3 decades of failed peace agreements, and I think those civil society groups on the ground know what's needed to actually remove this struggle. With that, Mr. Chairman, I go back.
Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Sharon. Thank you for holding this hearing today, and thank you to our witness for being here. Appreciate your testimony. I've had the privilege of visiting the African continent on multiple congressional delegations since I've been congressman time here, including recently DRC, Rwanda, Burundi, and everything in the area. During these visits, nearly all my conversations are centered around security and economic growth. And thanks to the leadership of President Trump and Secretary Rubio, that's exactly what the Washington Accords Peace and Prosperity sets the foundation for this to take place in the DRC. Now that the agreement is signed, implementation must be executed thoughtfully and with buy-in from all of our regional partners. Key to lasting peace is economic security, right? But you can't have economic security until you have some level of physical security as well, because people, outside nations are not going to come in and invest in an area where it's too hostile or too dangerous to operate. So that's just really going to be key in all of this. A plan that I've discussed with multiple heads of state in the area, including Rwanda and DRC, is that the region could create an economic framework where neighboring countries would manage separate segments of the critical mineral supply chain coming from the eastern DRC. Now, I'm not suggesting that the DRC should give resources away, they belong to the DRC, but what I am suggesting is that if this becomes a situation where it's mutually beneficial for everyone to have peace in the region because it's financially beneficial for everyone to have peace in the region, then I think that goes a long ways toward establishing lasting peace. And I've proposed multiple times that there should be agreement between the countries, and not just Rwanda and the DRC, but the DRC and Burundi, the DRC and Uganda, some of their neighbors, that everyone benefits from the trillions, the tens of trillions of dollars of rare earths that are currently in the eastern DRC. It's one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest, in the world with regards to some of these natural resources. So, if these could be mined, in the DRC and then refined or processed in the neighboring countries, everyone would have a vested interest in making sure that peace is maintained in the area. I also think that another area that's big here is that in order to get the physical security that we talked about, well, first off, let me just say that once that happens, another area that I've stressed really strongly is that the resources that come from this agreement down the road, if this were to take place, and some of this tremendous wealth were realized by the DRC and its neighboring countries, as I described. I think that it's absolutely critical that these resources have to be reinvested in the people of the DRC, the infrastructure. They have to see their lives getting better based on these minerals, being processed and sold. I also think that it's going to be really key. We talked about the atrocities, and yes, there's been atrocities on both sides. I've read the intel. In 23 was Orlando. There's been some atrocities across the board. It's been going on for a long time now, right? But I also maintain that in 23 is an armed militia group. I don't think they're going to put their weapons down and start farming the next day. I think that there has to be a concerted effort by the DRC to take the Congolese members of the M23 and incorporate them into the broader security platform for the country. Whether that's enabling them to be part of the military in some way, I'm not sure, but I do think that you have to have a plan for that as well. But my question for you, real quick, because I don't have much time left, I'm sorry, but is what is the Department of State doing right now how are they working to implement such a framework that I was just describing with regards to the economic and the physical security?
Great, well, thank you so much, Congressman, for the opportunity to address that. The regional framework that you described is exactly in line with what we have achieved with the regional economic integration framework signed between DRC and Rwanda. So that was a big incentive to participate in the peace process, like you said. Economic security and physical security do go together, and we will have increased investment into these economies. So we are looking forward to having the DRC and Rwanda
appreciate that, and I know this, I'm making it sound a lot easier than it actually is. This has been going on for decades now, in this conflict, but I do think that at some point, we have to set aside differences, and there has to be a way for M23 to reintegrate, and for everyone, including, both sides of this conflict, to see that they are benefiting from what's going on with the vast mineral wealth there that I think is ultimately the solution to this problem. But once again, I thank you for your time, and with that, Mr. Chairman,
Your recognize the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. For decades, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, has been trapped in a cycle of violence due to ethnic conflict between government actors, a variety of rebel groups, and foreign actors. Today, almost 15 million people in the DRC need humanitarian assistance, and almost 27 million people will face crisis or emergency levels of food insecurity in 2026. In December, Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi and Rwandan President Paul Kagame officially signed the U.S. brokered peace agreement and economic framework. The sustainability of this agreement is questionable given that it prioritized economic benefit from extraction of critical minerals over building sustainable peace. Excluded key actors impacted by the conflict, especially local civil society and Congolese women and girls, did not get involved in influential destabilizing actors and parties to the conflict, such as the March 23rd movement in 23. Over the last year, the administration terminated conflict and atrocity prevention and resolution programs in the country that advanced livelihoods and promoted stability around critical minerals, which has in turn undermined stability and threatened the success of the U.S.-led peace efforts. Furthermore, the reorganization of the State Department resulted in the elimination of key offices focused on conflict and atrocity prevention, such as the Bureau of Conflict and Stabilization Operation, CSO, and the Secretary's Office of Global Women's Issues. To successfully and sustainably address the drivers of violence and instability in the DRC, Trump administration must States puts more bans on African countries, more bans on integrating Africa into the global economy, making more barriers between our great countries to participate. Thank you so much for your cooperation and participation. I yield back, Chairman.
Mr. Olszewski.
Thank you to Chairman Smith, Ranking Member Jacobs, thank you to our witness for being here. Just a little bit of context for Congolese civilians living in the DRC to realize that the Washington courts is peace. It's not whether the president declares there is peace, it's does life become safer, more dignified, and more economically secure in local communities. Today, more than 70% of Congolese civilians live in extreme poverty. More than 1,100 schools and learning sites have been damaged or turned into shelters, with over 1.6 million children out of school in all of eastern DRC. Nearly 25 million are facing high levels of acute food insecurity. And since December 1st, at least 500,000 people, including over 100,000 children, have been newly displaced within South Kivu. So I just want to echo, I guess, the questions and the concerns, because despite these staggering numbers, we continue to hear from Congolese civil society leaders that they have been sidelined in the negotiations. So it's not a specific question, but hopefully as a follow-up to Charlotte, I'd love to learn more about specifically, when you say that they're being engaged, I want to hear specifically as a follow-up how that engagement has happened and what the plans are to continue. I appreciate your commitment to that, to the needs of these vulnerable children.
Thank you so much for the chance to address that issue. So I would say we continue to raise the issue of child soldiers at the highest levels in our cooperation with the government. Regulations related to the use of child soldiers obviously prevent significant amount of security cooperation with countries that have continued to have this issue. So in And in terms of active awards, I can get back to you on specifics, but we do have awards that address the protection of children in vulnerable communities. So we do think that through providing these resources, hopefully children are alternatives.
Great, look forward to that. Thank you for your time. With that, Mr. Chairman Eagle.
I'd like to recognize Ms. Tripolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much, Ms. Trautman, for being here today to answer our questions. My constituents have vocalized their desire to do more work with Africa, especially when it comes to business. So when this agreement came to the commission, many people were excited about the opportunities. Florida is a global trade gateway onto major ports and logistic hubs and increasingly connected U.S. markets to Africa. Stability between the DRC and Rwanda is essential for secure supply chain, responsible mining, material sourcing, and expanded two-way trade that benefits American workers and businesses. As Congress looks at President Trump's Washington Accords, it's important to assess how this engagement can reinforce African-led peace efforts, while also supporting economic integration and long-term regional stability. How is the United States working with Rwanda and DRC to advance cross-border trade, infrastructure, and material supply chains in ways that support peace and deliver measurable economic benefits?
Thank you so much, Congresswoman, for the chance to answer that question. The U.S. stands ready to help the DRC and Rwanda implement the regional economic integration framework that I mentioned. The goal of this framework is to incentivize business stability by providing opportunities for DRC and Rwanda to cooperate on cross-border projects. We certainly are encouraging these companies to invest in these projects, and we hope to highlight certain efforts that they might want to be involved in as this year progresses. We also hope that we can attract financing, possibly from RFPs like the DXC and Exxon, to support projects like this that will enforce stability and create economic opportunities to the region. I will say that we continue to emphasize that peace and stability is necessary for the DRC and Rwanda to take full advantage of the regional economic integration framework. So we do look forward to supporting and promoting these opportunities, but we do need to see compliance with these frameworks.
So do you have any specific incentives that you're using mechanisms to support and encourage people to do business?
Sure. So we are committed to highlighting opportunities in the countries of the Great Lakes region and attracting U.S. support and investment. This could include events hosted in DC to connect U.S. companies and advertise their companies also to entities and some methods and tools and connect them with representatives of industry firms to organize these opportunities. So it's something we can do as progresses, and I really welcome any recommendations.
And what do you believe is a realistic timeline for us to see this coming to fruition?
I certainly hope to see progress this year. We are moving forward on implementing this partnership agreement already. We hope to have the first meeting steering committee soon, which will discuss opportunities specifically that U.S. companies might be able to invest in, and we certainly be able to host events including companies and governments to discuss opportunities under the regional economic integration framework. So certainly hope to see progress.
Wonderful. And what did the African Union facilitate the talks that were happening in Togo? What did it bring us to achieve?
Sure. So we're very grateful for the African Union's commitment to supporting the peace process. We were very grateful for their explicit support of the Washington Accords and also the General Framework Agreement, and their support underpinning the processes and processes. The AU has operationalized 5 former heads of state to leadership on certain aspects of the peace process. So as I mentioned, we certainly hope that this conference strengthened their mandate so that we can move out on efforts to incorporate more civil society voices, to elevate humanitarian issues, to help with an inter-Congolese national dialogue and things like that. So we certainly hope to see their mandate strengthened as we move forward.
So my last question, because we're extremely committed to the success of this accord, it's extremely important that Rwanda and DRC are successful, but also that our businesses can attach and be productive. So what do you need from Congress to give you the scaffolding for success?
Thank you very much for that support. I would say we welcome your ideas and your thoughts on which facilitating investment under these frameworks. We certainly welcome that feedback.
to have it else. Puerto Rico's already, San Diego's already nice also, but you want to come support it. We love to host events. We've been doing a lot of events with business, back then, people love it. So those we can do to help support and move this issue toward you. Thank you so much.
Just a few follow-up questions. And my friend, Jackson, had a question or two. I've read both of the statements that have been submitted by the respective countries. They're very, very good. They both start out from the onset of the DRC. The Congo extends its deep thanks to the United States of America and President Donald Trump for facilitating the December 25th Peace and Prosperity Agreement. For the first time in history, they write, a U.S. president has taken a personal interest in ending Rwandan-backed oppression and the war in eastern DRC. Without objection, that's wholesale, we're getting part of the record, and then the Rwandans, through their distinguished ambassador, right? Rwanda expresses profound gratitude for President Trump and his administration for prioritizing the Rwanda-DRC peace process. And then it points out the accords represent serious progress towards permanent stability, security, prosperity in the Great Lakes regions. And we thank everyone from Secretary Rubio, starting with President Trump, Vance, Mr. Bullis, and others for making this possible. Again, beautiful statements in large part. We're asking that they just implement, be true to your word. And let me just ask you, could the church groups, I meet with church groups all the time, both countries. Senko, I've met with them for decades. There's a great deal of faith in each of these countries. People who really do believe in God, and they do believe in the power of forgiveness and mercy and reconciliation. Maybe most of all, reconciliation, if that's needed more than anything else. I wonder how well we are working with them to try to get them, the church groups, to do more. I remember meeting many times with Rick Warren from the Saddleback Church, who had a very strong personal relationship with Kagame. And Jim Inhofe, the senator, he used to tell me how he would pray with President Kagame. We sometimes disagreed, and I would say, peace, just tell him there's more that can be done. And the onus does lie with him and the other president, to do more. And I'm wondering, if others, Senator Rounds, I know has a really robust relationship with Paul Kagame. I think the more people who are raising the issue that they listen to, maybe they listen to our subcommittee, maybe not. Maybe they listen to me or my good friend, Ms. Jacobs. We're not going to go away, and they won't go away. And then they have a particular influence on saying this end hostilities and the atrocities, and it can happen. I can't thank you enough for your leadership, and again, President, as he only did this one state of the Congo, first president. I remember arguing with the Clinton administration repeatedly about how they missed it on the atrocities being committed with the genocide. And then even after it was all over, so-called, there were people following people into the bush to kill them. We had very, very good witnesses come in and tell us how Refugees International, for example, it's not over. They're hunting people down still. Why is Washington turning the page? So I don't think the page at all will be turned here until there is peace. And then we need to sustain that peace and that prosperity as best we can. So, and I'm wondering, we know that both sides agree that the FDR is a problem, who benefits from the status quo. Maybe you can speak to that. And again, I can't ask enough that the faith community, I remember having meetings in South Sudan, repeatedly with the president there, about how he was excluding the church. And they had all these ideas on how they could promote peace and reconciliation, and they had an arm's length approach with Salva Kiir. He had it there. I said, please, Mr. President, you have an asset here in the church community that is second to none. They love people, even those who persecute them. Why not utilize their good offices? So I hope that that's being done very robustly. I know you are, but whatever more can be done. And get more of our members of Congress who have these personal relationships with people like government to do more. And so you speak to that.
Ranking Member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you're absolutely right. We really appreciate your efforts and efforts of everyone who has contacts with DRC and people on representatives. Please echo all to the promises that were made to President Trump and, of course, the importance of so I would say on faith-based groups, we, of course, recognize and appreciate the important role that the organizations play in both the DRC and Rwanda. I think that they will play a very important role in national dialogue, and we certainly hope that with African Union's efforts, especially their most sustainable way along with civil society and religious opposition to create a real, genuine conversation discuss the government's issues that we hope to resolve, especially in the DRC, and the government issues that we always discussed individual fragments of all the negotiations. I would say also that faith-based groups are very important in our foreign assistance implementation. We obviously work very closely with some groups in the DRC and really appreciate their support as we continue to deliver this assistance. I would also say to your point about the FDLR. The FDLR is a legitimate threat. We certainly are not denying that. They cannot be allowed to operate in Eastern DRC. So we are certainly trying to now, while the FDLR is a legitimate threat, we do not consider the advance that we've seen from entry backed by the RDF to be targeted as utilizing the FDLR has gone beyond the areas where we would see that interaction. So we will recommend the importance of utilizing the FDLR.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary.
Thank you. So I appreciate that civil society was consulted on the brief, but I think it's really important that they are actually included in the peace processes itself, and especially as the United States is making deals under the strategic partnership agreement. The brief alone is not enough. Now I'd like to turn to the humanitarian crisis. In late December, the Trump administration announced a $2 billion commitment through the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, for humanitarian operations in 17 crisis-affected countries, including DRC. Mr. Chapman, given the crisis in DRC and President Trump's attention to the conflict, what portion of this OCHA funding will be used in DRC?
Thanks for the opportunity to discuss the OCHA mechanism. We're very excited about this new and innovative way to deliver foreign assistance. We think that under the OCHA mechanism, we'll be able to respond more flexibly to crises that arise around the world and be more strategic in how we are operating foreign assistance through funding mechanisms. While we have seen the high-level obligation to OCHA from the U.S. government, I'm not aware of very specific rules. So I look forward to keeping in touch with your staff and issue as we get prepared.
Okay, and given the depth of need in DRC and other countries, does the administration anticipate or foresee making additional contributions this year?
I would say that the DRC certainly remains a strategic priority for U.S. assistance. We remain committed to supporting populations in need and understand that that underpins our economic and security priorities. So we certainly remain committed to providing assistance in the DRC.
Okay, so I guess you will tell me that you do not currently have the details to share what specific humanitarian programs, including funding levels, are ongoing in Eastern DRC right now?
So I'll say that we, over the past year, provided $191 million in life-saving assistance in the DRC. That contribution makes the U.S. contributes 30% of the humanitarian response in the DRC, according to those numbers. So
Can you send over the specific programs and dollar amounts?
we can get you more information on that.
Thank you. And then I also wanted to turn to peacekeeping. I know Chairman Smith asked a few questions, but as you know, the Trump administration cut FY25 funding for UN peacekeeping operations by nearly 50% in 2 rescissions packages. Because of these funding shortfalls, the UN has been forced to reduce troop levels for all UN missions, including MONUSCO, by 25%. The FY26 funding bill recently passed by the House would restore funding for UN peacekeeping operations. Given the importance of MONUSCO to stability in Eastern DRC, is the administration committed to providing full funding for the mission?
Thank you so much for the chance to address MONUSCO funding. As I mentioned, the Secretary did provide funding for MONUSCO this year, and we look forward to
Full funding?
we did fulfill the U.S. obligation, I believe, this past year, and we certainly remain committed to assessing the mission. As I mentioned, we are very excited that this new mandate provides specific support to the Washington boards, and we look forward to supporting the mission being more targeted and strategic in how it advances their mission.
And are you committed to making sure that MONUSCO is not forced to continue operating with significantly reduced capacity?
We certainly remain committed to ensuring that MONUSCO can fulfill its mandate properly. We are very concerned, obviously, about the constraints that it faces in terms of access. Even if it was at full levels, the obstruction that we see is really unacceptable. So while we are supportive of its mandate, we recognize that it's not able to fulfill it. So we are determining how we can best strategically support MONUSCO in fulfilling its mandate in whatever way makes sense.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I was just going to make one more comment too. I think is important to just highlight is I think the big winner in all of this, the entity that comes out on top is China, and I think this happens all over the world. As a matter of fact, and it happens a lot in Africa. That China thrives in this environment where there's a lack of physical security and there's a lot of corruption, and I think that describes Eastern DRC, for the last a few decades at least. But I think China's taken advantage of it. I think they've taken advantage of the people in the DRC, and I just wanted to know: are we actively engaging with President Tshisekedi and with the other government officials in Kinshasa about the problems with the Chinese? I would refer to it, I wrote it down here as strategic corruption, because they will promote this instability, because it keeps their competitors, Western investment out of these areas. And so until we get past some of that, we need to do that. And I've talked to some American companies that were in the DRC that were subject to this, where they had regulatory burdens put on them, they had overwhelming, unreasonable taxation on their businesses, and some of it was being driven by relationships with the Chinese, with the government in Kinshasa, to promote some of that, to kind of eliminate them as competition. So I think many of my colleagues here have asked, how do we get some of these Western countries, the United States and some of our other allies, to come in and invest in the DRC and invest in become good business partners with the DRC. I think that until we address some of this stuff, it's also exceedingly difficult to do that. So have we had conversations about that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Congressman, for the chance to elaborate a bit more on the strategic partnership agreement that the U.S. made with the DRC, because it addresses all of these issues. So we know that Chinese companies have a vast majority of ownership over critical mineral assets in the DRC, especially copper and cobalt assets, and those are critical for U.S. supply chain security, especially important for our efforts to be dominant in emerging technology and to support the defense industrial base. So part of the strategic partnership agreement with the DRC is aimed at making sure that U.S. companies have preferential access to strategic assets in the DRC, which we will work with the DRC to designate. So the purpose of that is to get U.S. companies in the door, prevent Chinese companies from taking over of these assets, and to make sure that the offtake is coming to the United States to reduce our reliance on the refined minerals coming from China. So certainly this agreement is aimed at reasserting the U.S. dominance in the critical minerals sector, also making sure that the DRC is able to profit from its resources, because as you said, Chinese companies often have the lowest standards. They're exploiting the system, they're exploiting corruption, and we certainly don't want to see that. It's bad for U.S. companies trying to invest, it's bad for the people of the DRC. So we are looking forward to implementing this agreement to really cement the opportunities for U.S. companies in the DRC and in these
think, yeah, when I travel to anywhere in Africa, I make the point, anywhere in the world for that matter, because China, the Belt and Roads program is all over the place. But I make the point to everybody that the U.S. is a much better partner than the Chinese. We're there to, if we make agreements, regarding the natural resources, we're paying for them, and we're paying appropriately for them. We're not robbing these countries of some of their natural resources, which I think is what the Chinese do. But I do think that, like I said before, I think once we get in a situation where we start getting some investment in there, it has to stay in the Eastern DRC. The money does. The vast majority of it. It has to. People that live and work there, or that would like to work there, but live there, have to see, the infrastructure building up around us, and they have to see their lives getting better. Or quite honestly, it's just not gonna. It's not gonna survive long term. So with that, I go back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Just on that point briefly, didn't know what the hearing. I've had 5 hearings on the issue of cobalt coming into the area. We've had numerous people, and Ed Royce, my friend and colleague, was very active in trying to promote the idea of, hey, child labor, 35,000 approximately children are being forced into these mines and dying, in some cases getting very sick, and about 200,000 adults who are under very coercive restraints by the Chinese Communist Party and run these. And then where does the cobalt go? It goes to Xinjiang. I chair the China Commission. We've had hearings there too. Xinjiang, where the Uyghurs are being so horribly repressed and oppressed, and then it comes here. Now, if we're going to have cars that use cobalt, fine. But don't do it on the backs of children and forced labor. And so our bill, which again I hope is moot because of this agreement, would provide a rebuttable presumption that anything coming out of DRC that goes to China has been tainted with slave labor and child labor, and therefore it's inadmissible to the United States. We got a major portion of it, like I said before, passed in the Ways and Means Committee. But if all this fails, we're right back to doing that. And we also have a strategy embedded in the bill, because we want the people of DR Congo to enjoy the fruits of all of that richness that they have, and let them be blessed with it, not the Chinese Communist Party that's using it to build out their military capabilities and to oppress maybe Taiwan next, certainly Hong Kong and their own people. So this is so important that this prevail. And again, we want the people of DR Congo to benefit. Whether it be a friendly African country or some other true democracy, that's where you do the processing with safeguards that protect not just those who mine it, but those who process it later. You don't have that in China. It just doesn't exist under a dictatorship. So thank you. And I want to thank my friend and colleague for raising those kinds of important issues. I want to thank you, Secretary Troutman, for your valuable testimony, for your very clear and well-informed answers. And to the members of our committee, including our distinguished ranking member, Ms. Jacobs, for asking her good questions as well. The members of the subcommittee may have some additional questions for the witness, and we will ask you to respond to these in writing if you would. Pursuant to committee rules, all members may have 5 days to submit statements, questions, and comments materials to the record, subject to the length limitation, and without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
And
As soon as I finish my okay, now we success. Sounds good. Thank you so much. You're smart. I escaped it somehow. But thank you.
Pardon. Ça va, Jean-Luc, tu as pris? Pas sûr. Ça va bien. Un grand plaisir de vous voir chez nous. Juste pour ça? C'est pas vrai.
Oui.
Donc vous rentrez déjà là bientôt?
Non, je suis
Ah, d'accord.
T'inquiète jusqu'à là.
Oh, mon grand est là, mais respect. Grand frère,
C'est ça, je dis. Je cherche.
Akati Sukingo.
Vous semblez regarder depuis ma caméra.
C'est tout ce qu'on peut faire. C'est tout ce qu'on peut faire. C'est tout ce qu'on peut faire. Oui, grand chef. Ça va bien? Je vous ai vu de loin là-bas, je me suis dit, si vous êtes là, quoi.
C'est toujours là.
C'est toujours là. Grand chef. Mes respects. Mes respects.
C'est de tout le forum.
Mais c'est pour le forum, mais.
Que je revois cette figure.
Et les patrons ne nous invitent pas. Si les patrons nous invitent, on n'allait pas.
Chez votre père, on vous invite. Toutes les portes sont toujours ouvertes.
Ça c'est vrai. 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 Oui, quand je fais.
Je vois comment.
Ah, mais je suis là, ça dépend de vous. Moi, je suis là.
L'ambassadeur, notre ambassadeur.
Ambassadeur, il y en a. Ah, ok. C'était.
J'ai des choses à partager avec vous.
C'est vrai, hein?
S'il faut qu'on fasse une mission de
Ouais.
mon temps.
Oui.
En tout cas,
Ouais.
donc maintenant là,
Producteur en ailleurs, Jean-Louis m'a fait, moi.
oh,
Oui.
il m'a fait.
Ouais, Jean-Louis m'a fait. Voilà, c'est ça, papa. Oh, yeah. Il est mon ami Balé.
On a eu ma occasion.
Mon équipe, tout le monde l'encadre,
Je pense qu'il y a
le chairman. Est-ce que quand il te reçoit, vite fait, non, on dira au bout. Non, on dira au bout.
Il faut tout le monde. Jean-Louis, on a un bolambato, mais aucun type.
Pour boire la bonne canne, ndenge moi.
Sur le aux directement live.
Là, il veut continuer.
Somo ni kangana. Somo ni kangana. Ni yango to. Obaini. Somo ni kangana tonto bengi. La ndep sona. Mbati na katikati.
Fungoli déjà.
Fungoli jambala. Micro et tout bien.
Dona ye na mwasi wana omibale. Roger, ndenge yo monela mo. Discours que il a ndenge ndenge. Moi ça va non. Je comprends la condamnation, bien sûr. Et puis il y a aussi le vieux monde.
J'ai un somo ni kangana. Parce qu'on va poser même une question. Jean-Louis, faites-le comme ça. Sure. Okay, stay right there. Stay with the chairman. Chairman is there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Quick second, Chairman. Thank you so much. Quickly with the press, we didn't ask you how are you satisfied, Chairman, with your work?
Today was a reminder just how important peace is, and with all the chaos in the world, Ukraine to all the problems that happen in the Middle East, I care deeply about what's happening between Europe and with, of course, Rwanda. I just want this to work. I've read the peace agreement, all the ancillary agreements, this could lead to economic expansion, second to none, and who will win? People in both countries and the region, and that's what it's all about.
Now, people are asking about this place. There's a peace agreement, but nothing is happening.
Well, I think something is happening, and I think the reason I think is we expect hope, but we also expect that a man's word will be implemented faithfully, not just by the presidents, but also everybody in that chain of command. Again, having seen so much death and destruction, we've been in Congress 46 years, and the number of people I've seen all over the world where there's been bloodshed, rapes, like I was in going over to this place where there was really big I couldn't believe how many and it was faith that got them to think that they could win.
Exactly.
So it's trying to get out of the
And Chairman, last question. You had mentioned about China and the U.S. And what you say, that's what people live on the ground, is that China's looking at the in America, things are changing. That's why they're patient to actually see the investors and all that.
We got to do all that. Right. But they won't go unless there's a peace.
Right. And that's what America's waiting for.
You said something. You said something about China suffering against the black.
You see what the government is right now. And we're so aware of the investigation according to the Trump vision. So you see, people Congolese people are watching right now. They're wondering what's going to happen.
Well, what's going to happen is that once the agreement is signed, it lays out in very clear detail what is expected. We hope that will be set for the children are here. I mentioned the child labor issue. I had those hearings on run by the Chinese Communist Party and the mistreatment of those kids. We had Congolese come and testify. That's where we got most of our information. One Jesuit priest, had nauseating breakdown about how these kids are getting sick, inhaling the cobalt dust. Mines collapse on them and they die. That's not as frequent, but the long term, and they're not in school. Not kids in school, and they're being exploited. And they need relief so badly, and they're manipulated by these people, and the adults. It's the same thing. So what we're saying is that that's why we had we got this important bill. I would rather it never be needed, because this peace agreement eclipses everything. And we say, okay, now how do we build up, get American companies in there, all working, because I do believe in the importance of if you extract your minerals, you should be benefiting more than anyone else in the globe from that. I mean, it's your money, it's your great rare minerals. I mean, so you should benefit more than anyone else in the world. In my opinion, the Chinese government, they've done it in Ghana, they've done everywhere they come in, they build some roads, they get countries very highly indebted to them. And even when I was in Kinshasa, I'll never forget it, I went to a building project right there, and I looked around and I said, how are these Chinese doing the work? Where are the local talent, working on that construction project? And the people doing it didn't look very happy. I mean, they looked like a road gang, from prison labor. And nobody does more incarcerations than the Chinese Communist Party. I've chaired 107 hearings on human rights in China. I've been there 15 times. And they won't allow me in anymore, because I want to go. I want to go to Xinjiang. I want to go badly and go to the, and raise these issues, lead a delegation of my colleagues, and they won't let me in. Barred me from entering. But when it comes to concentration camps, look what they're doing to the Muslims. I mean, the Uyghurs. It's just.
Chairman, my last question, in your point of view, just so Congolese were watching right now, and everybody knows what's going on. How soon do you think this thing might be gone completely? I know you're waiting for the signature and the detail that you mentioned. But how soon do you think right now?
Well, we wanted it yesterday, but I honestly believe it can happen. You know, where there's a will, there's a way. What looks like impossible. I mean, I thought that agreement. When I was over for that signing agreement, I kept pinching myself and saying, "Am I really watching this? This is incredible." I've had such joy. I was standing next to Brian Masters, our full committee chairman. He had pretty much the same idea that this is huge, and we just want to implement it faithfully. So we're going to do more hearings. We're going to do all kinds of things to try to say, please, we just want this to work.
Okay.
And that's why I asked about people of influence with individuals like Kagame and others. I mean, there are no senators and congressmen who have personal relations.
But we do believe you have also influence as well.
I'm trying.
So, but the question, I know you're from New Jersey. I've been there sometimes. I know you're pro-life. How about the 20 million of Congolese pass away dead? Are we going to punish those in like genociders and all these M23? How can we reintegrate M23 in security? That's not possible. You've been killing people, and we're going to take you back to live with people? What do you think about that?
Well, it's a very, very hard question to answer. We've had it all over the world. It happened in the Balkan Wars, where Milosevic had slaughtered all these people, particularly they killed 8,000 people in a week. And then people were saying, just look the other way. How do you do that? And somebody ordered one of those executions.
Right.
So there needs to be justice, but I think there also needs to be a sense of reconciliation for many. It's almost like, who do you hold to account?
And justice for all.
We learned that.
Exactly. As Americans, this is justice for all, right? Nobody's going to go bypass the justice, even though we're talking about peace.
But we can't just stop abandoning rapes.
Exactly.
Obviously, the shooting.
We're counting on you. We know you're pro-life.
Thank you so much.
I know we say thank you to you.
Sir, we really appreciate it.
I need just to be in touch with you. How can I go? Who can I contact?
Ooh, good comment.
Jean-Louis, passe ça.
Thank you so much for clarifying.
Jean-Louis, non, elle ne fait pas d'interview. Elle ne fait pas d'interview. Jean-Louis, if you like, be careful.
Yeah, what's up, bro?
What's up, man?
Things, man. Things are really going, bro.
Comment tu
Comment ça va?
Je te dis. Yeah, I got it.
Mais je suis là.
Kulitazama kazawa, ana Paris, azawa, ana Bruxelles, ana Kinshasa, ana Munich.
Mais toi, ça fait mon gars. Malamon,
On comprend les questions d'ailleurs.
We continue for Moleka.
Exactement.
Those are live. We live. We did live right now. Yeah.
Yeah, we got live.
Yeah, we live right now.
Malamon.
Pardon.
Oh, c'est bon.
Jean, papaya.
Yeah.
One phone on the side.
I'll get photos.
Why don't you just put it on the tripod?
Yeah.
Just leave it on the tripod. Just leave it on the tripod. Yeah. Leave it on the tripod where it is and adjust this. That's it.
Somebody just.
Yeah. No. Just adjust this. Yes. We don't want anything to shake. So look at here. Is it okay there if you look?
No,
And this can go up there.
yeah, just that.
Please double check. Make sure we're good. Jean-Louis, adjust this there. Be careful of the phone so it doesn't fall.
All right, okay, good.
I think the microphone is going to be good. I need to put a mic in there. Give me that black bag, please. Give me that black bag, because if you go too far, people talking. Yeah.
C'est le père. Non, c'est le grand frère. Vous ressemblez beaucoup. C'est le grand frère. Mais vous savez que c'est... Ok, good.
use that. Thank you.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
Sure, just for a
Please,
second.
let's move on. Please,
Yeah, for a second. Just for a second.
Yeah. Jean-Louis, okay, we can go ahead. You could hold
Yeah.
the mic for
Okay,
him.
okay,
Hold the
okay,
mic
okay.
for him.
For him.
Yeah. Okay, so you can start. You can
Ok.
Président Moleka, nous vous rencontrons ici et dans cet espace ici où on a écouté la situation sur le terrain par rapport à ce qui se passe au pays après la signature de l'accord de l'année dernière. Votre réaction d'abord après avoir écouté tout?
Mais je pense d'abord que on voit et on comprend très bien que du côté des partenaires américains, on a pris cet accord très au sérieux et qu'ils comptent vraiment y mettre de leur sérieux, y mettre de leurs moyens pour que cet accord puisse réellement prendre vie. Et ce que j'ai apprécié chez le chairman aujourd'hui, c'est lorsqu'il a dit que il faut absolument que les produits, les fruits puissent revenir à la population. Hein, je crois que dans l'histoire de la gestion de nos richesses minières, quel que soit le partenaire, ce que nous avons toujours déploré, c'est que les Congolais ne se retrouvaient pas. Les Congolais ne se retrouvaient pas. Et je pense que ce que nous avons entendu aujourd'hui de la part du comité, subcommittee on Africa, on a senti quand même la détermination de cette administration de faire en sorte que les Congolais, c'est-à-dire que la population, se retrouve dans ce genre de contrat, dans ce genre de pacte, je dirais.
Monsieur Moleka, est-ce que quelque part vous avez écouté une sorte de condamnation parce que beaucoup de gens attendaient vraiment voir, bien écouter du comité des condamnations par rapport à ce qui se passe, par rapport à la violation de l'accord. Avez-vous écouté quelque chose dans ce sens-là?
Non, je crois que le hearing portait plutôt sur le fait de voir avec le département d'État qui est le gestionnaire des affaires étrangères, ainsi que Madame Sarah Trotman en tant que députée Assistant Secretary of State for Africa était là pour présenter la position de l'administration par rapport au niveau auquel l'accomplissement de la matérialisation de cet accord se trouve. Et je crois que nous avons senti et nous voyons du côté de nos partenaires américains, il y a la volonté de faire de cet accord une réalité. Et il nous appartient à nous de montrer que non seulement nous avons la volonté, mais que nous posons les actes qui feront en sorte que cet accord puisse être matérialisé.
Mokonzi Moleka tomoni awa pona bana moko bazolanda biso live partout na Congo balingi bayeba yo ye tomoni ofandaki awa olandi makambo nyonso ndenge elekani okoki koyebisa bango en quelques mots elekani ndenge nini est-ce que yo oza satisfait na makambo yo ki awa na Congrès américain ou bien boni?
Nga naza satisfait na ndenge ke namoni ba partenaire na biso américain ba kolomboka baza penza na mokano wana ete eloko oyo totiaki linzaka etambola et que baza kozela pe kote na bango sorte omoni ndenge mituna bazotuna moto na bango oyo département d'État donc moto aza gérer politique étrangère na bango mituna baza kotuna ye ezolakisa que baza na souci que eloko wana esimba et puis surtout ngelo na sepe nango c'est que na yoki na chairman ya session ya lelo ke baza na société eloko wana donc bénéfice ya population et mona na pas la population puisque yango nde to biso ba congolais to mona et si un problème ezala to mona ba investisseur bayaka mais to mona kate congolais aza ko bénéficier na nini
bana baza ko souffrir, ba travailleurs baza ko souffrir, surtout le secteur Yamine. Au moni chairman a lobelo komo ya très important. Oui, sur bana, mais aussi sur l'exploitation même. Il y a ba minéraux, ndingizo ko kindi Chine pour un traitement simé en États-Unis. A lobelo komo très important. Landi mesure wana
oui, a lobelo ba minéraux oyo ko na Congo et que na Chine ezala inadmissible en États-Unis. Pendant ndenge baza ko utiliser bana mike tout ça.
Mais yo sepeli na yango desi.
Na sepeli nango mais été ya biso moko pe pour biso moko pe ba congolais ba exploitant ya ba mine wana to utiliser pe bana mike.
Non, c'est carré minier.
Oui, c'est bien que na ba chinois tout ça mais biso moko pe ba patron congolais il faut tout utiliser bana na ba mine. Merci.
Nils, on va prendre des gens. On va prendre des gens. Nils. On prend Nils. La légende.
Nils Kinouani est avec nous. Nils, on est en live, on est en direct. On vous a trouvé ici avec mon collègue Bolamba ici. Nous sommes venus couvrir au compte de l'ACPI, l'Agence congolaise de presse. Votre point de vue d'abord, nous savons comment vous êtes très impliqué dans la situation du pays et même ici dans la diaspora. Que pensez-vous de ce qui s'est passé aujourd'hui?
Je pense que ça nous aide, cette audition aujourd'hui nous aide un peu à cerner la position de membres du Congrès concernant l'accord qui a été signé le 4 décembre. Donc l'accord de Washington Accord, comme on le dit en anglais. Nous savons que les membres du Congrès jouent un rôle important dans l'implémentation, dans l'exécution de cet accord. Et donc l'audition d'aujourd'hui nous donne l'occasion de savoir ce qu'ils pensent de cet accord. Et pour nous, activistes, pour nous qui faisons la plaidoirie, ça nous aide à savoir où est-ce que nous devons intervenir, comment nous devons leur expliquer afin que cet accord puisse évidemment bénéficier aux populations de notre pays.
Nils Kinouani, je pense que tu étais attentif, tu as vu comment est-ce que le chairman parfois il levait même le ton, il tapait sur la table parce qu'ils veulent voir que la paix revienne. Les gens sont en train de souffrir, les enfants sont en train de souffrir. Vous êtes activiste ici, votre réaction d'abord par rapport à son attitude?
Bon, pour nous, il y a deux choses que nous exigeons. La première chose, c'est que il y a beaucoup d'éléments importants qui manquent dans cet accord. Il y a la justice, il y a ce qu'on appelle en anglais accountability, la redevabilité. Ces éléments manquent dans cet accord.
Et je pense qu'ils ont parlé un peu de ça.
Oui, ils ont parlé de ça, mais voilà, nous voulons que ces éléments puissent être intégrés, ajoutés dans cet accord. Ça, c'est la première chose. La deuxième chose, c'est que l'accord a été signé, mais l'accord n'est pas respecté. Et je pense qu'ils sont revenus sur ça. On a du mal à comprendre que les présidents viennent signer un accord ici, les trois présidents, et que quelques jours après, qu'il y ait des violations. Donc ça, ce sont les deux choses problématiques, les deux problématiques qui nous concernent et sur lesquelles nous sommes en train de travailler.
Vous êtes en train de travailler sur cela, mais pour quel résultat? Vous pensez que ces genres de hearings doivent continuer pour essayer de nous amener quand même à la paix que l'on est en train de chercher?
Ça doit continuer et les membres de la diaspora doivent être impliqués. Ça, c'est notre occasion d'être impliqués et ça doit continuer pour que cet accord puisse être connu du public américain et que cet accord puisse faire la différence.
Merci beaucoup en tout cas.
Merci Nils. Merci.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's, you can cut that. You can cut the live. Make sure you cut the live. We're still live. Make sure that's cut.
We're still cut that.
Just fine. Let's go like that. That thing. Don't know what it is. Maybe like back in here.
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
Oh, yeah, you want to stop streaming?
That's it.